We're going to start now with Perek of Mishna Alef. The Mishnah says, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. Moshe received the Torah on Har Sinai, umasar Yeshua, and then he transmitted it to Yeshua. Yeshua was a Zakenim. Yeshua then transmitted it to the Zakenim. The Zakenim Nevi'im, and the Zakenim then transmitted it to the Nevi'im. Nevi'im masru l'Anshe Knesset Hagadola, and then the Nevi'im transmitted it to the Anshe Knesset Hagadola. They said three things. One should be deliberate in judgment, and the person should have many students. And one should make a gate for or fence for the Torah. And the Rabbi Bartenura begins. He wants to address the following question. We're starting now Pirkei Avos. Pirkei Avos is going to teach us all kinds of insights into Musar and Midos and the way a person's supposed to conduct themselves. And it seems at a place that there's this little random opening where the Mishnah first gives us the Besora, that Moshe was Makabel the Torah on Har Sinai, and then it goes on to list how it was transmitted generation to generation. What is that doing here? What does that have to do with anything? Why is that the beginning of the Masechta? So the Rav explains, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai, Omarni, I say, Lefisha Mesecha Zu, since this Masechta, enemy you said that's al Perish Mitzvah, Mi Mitzvahs HaTorah, it is not based on explaining a mitzvah from the mitzvahs of the Torah, Kishar Masechta Sheba Mishnah, like the other Masechtas in the Mishnayos. Right? Most other Masechtas, or all the Masechtas in Mishnayos, are basically coming to explain a specific mitzvah in the Torah. Now you have Masechah Sukkah, which deals with the halachos of Sukkah. You have Masechah Pesachim, which deals with varying halachos regarding Pesach. Then you could have the agricultural Masechahs in a Seder Zerayim. You could have Truma, Meiser, Peah. You could have Kedushin and Gittin and Yevamos dealing with marriage, divorce, Yibum, etc. You could have in Nezikin. You have Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, monetary law. So all the Masechahs basically are coming to expand and to further explain and set out for us all the different details of a given mitzvah. But this Mishnah and this Masechta is not doing that. Elakua musar mumidos. Rather, it's all about musar midos. Chachmei umos ha'olam gam ken chibru svarim kemoshe badam milibam v'darchei hamusar. And the wise men of the other nations, the nations of the world, they also authored books according to that which they thought based on their own ideas in the manner of Moser. How a person should conduct himself with his friend. Lefikach, therefore, Hiskal Hatana Masechta. The Tana began in this Masechta, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai, that Moshe received the Torah by Har Sinai, Lomar, to teach us Shahamidos v'Hamusarim Shebezom Masechta, that the varying midos, the character traits and the conduct and the musarim and the different morality and all the different lessons that are in this Masechta, lo badu osam chachmei HaMishnah melibam. The chachmei HaMishnah did not create them and draw them out from their own hearts. Ella af elu never b'Sinai. Rather, even these were also said on Har Sinai. So the Rav is saying that the reason why the Mishnah begins with this introduction that the Torah was given on Har Sinai and transmitted generation to generation is to tell us the following thing. Don't think that these ideas that we're about to read in the Mishnayos here in Pirkei Avos are ideas that the Chachamim came up with on their own, and they were not given over as part of the Torah on Har Sinai. No, these are also really part of the Torah that was given over on Har Sinai, and they're not the Chachamim's own ideas. However, when we stop to think about it, it seems a little bit strange because the Rav lists two reasons why a person might be led to believe that the Chachamim came up with these ideas on their own, and they're not in fact part of the Torah. The first reason the Rav gives is because this Masechta is not coming to explain a specific mitzvah like other Masechtas do. It doesn't seem to address any specific part of the Torah. And it would seem that therefore somebody might say that it's not part of the Torah because it's not addressing a part of the Torah. However, when we think about it, it doesn't really make too much sense because every Masechta, when it comes to address what's written in the Torah, the part that's in the Mishnah is the part that's Torah Shabbat Peh, the oral Torah. It's the part that's not written in the Torah. That's every Mishnayos. It's not written in the Torah. It's coming to teach us details and facets of the mitzvah that are, yes, there is a mitzvah written in the Torah, but the things that the Mishnah is teaching us are the parts that are not explicitly written in the Torah, whether through the various forms of drasha, Kavachomer, Gzereshava, Binyanav, whatever it is, whatever method it is that it was transmitted to us, or whatever method the Chacham had to arrive at that limud, it's something which is not explicit in the Torah. So very nice, it's explaining something which is written in the Torah, but this particular din the Chacham are teaching us is not. So the same way, I don't think over there that maybe the Chacham made it up themselves just because it's not explicitly written in the Torah. And I understand that if they're teaching this to me, then they're teaching me something which they got from the Torah. So too here, just because it's not explicitly written in the Torah, why does that mean that now suddenly it's coming from the Chacham themselves and it's not a part of the Torah? But it gets even stranger, because then the Rav says, also the fact that the Chachmei Umos HaOlam, we find the wise men of the Goyim, the nations of the world, they also wrote such types of svarim, such types of books that are meant to teach us codes of conduct, how to conduct oneself, and morality, etc., these types of ideas. And when they wrote their books, they were based on their own personal ideas that they made up, nothing to do, obviously, with the Torah. And it seems that the Rav is saying, therefore, one might be led to believe, just like those Chachamim acted in that way, and that's the way they conducted themselves when they wrote their books, so too the Chachmei HaMishnah, when they wrote this sefer of Pirkei Avos, and they're writing on a similar topic, they may be conducting themselves similarly and got their ideas from their own thoughts as opposed to coming from the Torah. Now, off the bat, it doesn't seem to add up, because if before I saw the Chachmei Umos HaOlam, I didn't think that the Chachmei HaMishnah did that, why would the Chachmei Umos HaOlam now lead me to believe they did do that? Just because that's the way the nations of the world, their Chachamim, conducting themselves, why does that lead me to believe suddenly that the Chachmei HaMishnah acted that way? Because Plato or Socrates or whoever these Chachmei Umos HaOlam may be, because they acted a certain way, I should think that Rabbi Akiva and Hillel and Shammai also acted that way. What does one have to do with the other? And especially when we think about the people that they are, obviously, the Chachmei Umos HaOlam, they didn't have the Torah. So by definition, then they're going to be writing ideas that they came up with on their own. But our Chachamim do have the Torah. And therefore, why would we assume that they would be doing the same thing that the Chachmei Umos HaOlam did? They did that way because that's what they have. Of course, they're going to do it that way. But our Chacham, on the contrary, where they get their ideas from and where they get their knowledge from comes from the Torah. So why would I ever begin to think that just because the Chachmei Umos HaOlam wrote their svarim in one way, that means that the Chachmei HaMishnah also acted that way? And it would seem that obviously the Rav doesn't mean to say that if you ask the person, you read the Pirkei Avos here, and you see that, look, these things are not explicit in the Torah. And we find similar books authored by the Chacham of the nations of the world, and they made this stuff up. So therefore, are you really sure that the Chacham didn't just make this up on their own? So of course the person will answer to you, of course I know that the Chacham didn't just make this stuff up. I know it comes from the Torah. There's no reason to doubt this comes from the Torah any more than anything else the Chacham taught me. I don't suddenly wake up here and decide, oh, this they made up. Like the same way everything else I know they didn't make up. I know they didn't make this up either. So what does the Rav mean then that a person might think that they made it up on their own? It would seem he means that on some level, even though, of course, I know, but there's different levels of knowing something. A person could know something, but, maybe there's somewhere deep in the back of his mind, in the deep recesses of his mind, on some level, he's not 1,000,000% convinced. Or even if he's 100%, 1,000,000% intellectually, he knows it to be true, but emotionally, he doesn't feel it. Is it as real to him as his hand? Maybe not. He knows it's true, but he doesn't feel it the same way. It doesn't quite hit him in that same way that he knows other things are true. It's not to the same degree. We can all perhaps relate. We say, I don't know, I believe in Hashem. Okay? And obviously we all do. We conduct our lives based on that. But do we believe in Hashem to the same degree that we believe our hand is our hand? Right? I have no doubt in my mind that my hand is my hand. It's attached to me. I can feel it. I can touch it. I could move it. I could, do whatever I want with it. I know that this is my hand. I have no doubt about it. Not on an intellectual level, not on an emotional level. I have zero doubts. Is that how clear I am about Hashem? Right? And we could have many examples of such things. So it would seem that the Rabbi is saying that on some level, our belief that these teachings that Pirkei Avos is going to teach us, the Musar and the Midos that it's going to teach us, our belief that it's a part of the Torah, is perhaps going to be on some level, albeit maybe very minimally, it'll be compromised, or perhaps only on an emotional level, we won't fully feel it. And in order for us not to feel that way and to fully feel it and to fully believe it, the Tana has to come and give us this reassurance that no, this is also from the Torah. But if that's the case, then that means that even what seems to be, at best, a relatively infinitesimal, small feeling of this is not really from the Torah, maybe the Chacham made it up, has the power to actually impact me. Because if this doesn't do anything, so the Tana has no need to waste his time with writing this special introduction. Obviously, if he needs to write this introduction to reassure me that this is not the case and the Chacham did not make it up, that means if he didn't do that, there could be a potential issue. There could be something which would occur from that. It would make an impact, and therefore it's worthwhile for him to address it. But that means that even when a person has something which they can know to be true, if on some level they don't fully feel it, or they don't fully know it to the fullest, then that can have an impact on, aside for the actual knowledge itself, but it can have an impact on the way they will conduct themselves and the way they will accept that teaching and what they will do based on that. And many times we think that, I know something already. Is it important just how much I know it? Do I have to really feel with all my heart and all my soul, with all my everything, just like I know my hand is my hand? Is it that important? I know it. Well, what's the difference? And we see from here that no, it is important. And it does make a difference. And we have to try to work on ourselves where even when we do know something, but to bring it further and further until it gets to the point where, yes, I'm 100% clear and I know it to a degree and I feel it just as much as I know my hand is my hand. But I think we see something else even more profound from here. Because the second reason the Rav gave that a person might begin to think or feel that these teachings don't come from the Chachamim is the fact that the Chachmei Umos HaOlam, when they wrote their Svarim, they did it based on their own ideas. Obviously, they made it up. And as we said, it doesn't make any sense that should lead me to believe that the Chachmei HaMishna did the same thing. First of all, they're different people. Just because one person conducts themselves in one way, why does that mean a different person will conduct themselves in the same manner? And obviously, the whole thing doesn't make any sense because the Chachmei Umos HaOlam, they don't have the Torah. So, of course, they're making it up. But the Chachmei HaMishna do have the Torah, and everything they do is about teaching the Torah. So why would the fact that they taught it from their own hearts lead me to believe the Chachmei HaMishna did the same thing? And not only that, besides the fact it doesn't make sense, are we talking about a person here who is reading the Mishnah, and then he says, let me think for a minute. Did the Chachamim make this up? Did they get it from the Torah? Is that the way he approaches every Mishnah? Every time a person reads the Mishnah, he thinks to himself, is this Mishnah really from the Torah or the Chachamim made it up? And why is he reading the Mishnah in the first place? He doesn't want to hear what the Tana has to say. He's trying to understand what the Torah has to say. That's the whole reason he's reading the Mishnah in the first place. So he's not trying to figure out if the Tana is representing the Torah. He's already coming with that assumption. So you have someone here who is assuming that this is coming from the Torah. He's not trying to figure it out. And there's no reason to believe it doesn't come from the Torah. There's no logical connection to believe just because one Chachamim from the Umos HaOlam acted in a certain way, that means the Chachmei HaMishna acted that way. And yet, somehow, the person in his mind, without even intending to, makes this connection. It almost sounds like a Gzeira Shava, Chachamim. Over here, the Chachmei Umos HaOlam acted this way. So too, perhaps the Chachmei HaMishna acted this way. And now it causes him to accept those teachings differently and to see them in a different light, on some level, in some way, shape, or form, maybe only, as we said, only an emotional level, whatever it's going to be. And it impacts him. And we see from here just, first of all, how complex the human being is, how we can be impacted by things that we're not looking for, we're not trying to be impacted by them, and logically they may not even make any sense. just by the way they look or the way they appear, or because they bear a certain similarity to something else, that could cause us to look at it in the same way. And obviously, aside from the fact that this means a person has to be very careful what they expose themselves to, the ideas, what they see, what they hear, etc. Sometimes a person thinks, I could dabble in a certain thing, or I could look up a certain thing, or I could, learn about a certain thing, and I'm not really trying to. I just want to know about it, and it won't impact me. And we see from here it's not so simple. That even where you're not trying to have an impact on yourself, and it's not something that should logically have an impact, it still could. But perhaps even more than that, we see from here that there's a very powerful tool that a person has in their arsenal. Sometimes a person thinks, I want to work on myself, I want to better myself, I want to improve in a certain area, I want to come to a greater feeling or belief in something, and it could be very difficult. And how should I go about doing it and actually doing it? It could be very difficult. But we see from here that perhaps a tool that a person could use, either to help them or sometimes even just to get themselves started, get the ball rolling, is to expose themselves to the right ideas and the right people and the right situations. And just by being around them without even trying to learn from them, I'm not actively saying, oh, look, let me see exactly what he's doing. Let me try to understand it and then figure out how to apply it to myself. Of course, that could make it even more powerful. But even without doing that, just the mere fact that you're there and observing and you see, that itself, without doing anything more, can already begin to have an impact on you, and you can begin to see things in a different light. You can begin to feel things differently. You can begin to believe things more. And through that, a person can have the power to change themselves without really even doing anything. As Hashem, we could all take these tools and use them to work on ourselves, to better ourselves, and through that to come closer to Hashem, to build a stronger relationship with Hashem, and ultimately to be zocheh to all the good that Hashem wants to give us.